Hello, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain. So,
just to remind you, it's the 10th day in the month of August. Amaya Makinde, good morning and welcome.
Of course, we all need that reminder. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
I don't know why he's reminding us, but good morning and welcome from Abuja. I'm Maokwe Ogunyusuf.
You know, one of the things that makes that necessary is the last time you really remember, you know, the dates is when you were in primary school. You have to remember the, remember the date.
Oh, Aya, you've gone too far. Just walk into a bank and you're about to fill a form and you start asking, please, what's today's date?
We should remind federal government against what's going on with ASU, as a matter of fact.
Absolutely.
It's the 10th day. How many months now? They've been over 175 days. But they still are at home. Something needs to be done about those students. They're getting really... Who wouldn't get frustrated after such a long time at home and counting, as a matter of fact. And then speaking about being frustrated, in Lagos, yes, in different parts of the country, but particularly this one is... a scenario occurred about 2 days ago on the 3rd mainland bridge where there was this traffic robbery that was all over the place. Lots of people talking about it. You know, so many people commute from the mainland to the island and vice versa. And so when this happened in the wee hours, that during the traffic rush hour, you will expect that it will cause some panic. There could be tailback, and it has huge implications. Nobody knows for how long. Usually when there's a slight disruption in that rush hour during the free flow of traffic. So we decided to go to the Commissioner of Police in Lagos and put a question to him concerning what is the police doing about stemming this traffic robbery, nipping it in the bud. Here's his reaction.
Traffic robbery has been there before I came on board. And I don't want to sound pessimistic here. As long as you keep on having traffic congestion and you cannot find policemen everywhere, once in a while, we will experience this type of a thing. But then we are doing all we can, to the best of our knowledge, to ensure that it is reduced to the barest minimum. We have arrested no less than 45 traffic robbers in Lagos, paraded by arrest officers and other police officers from various divisions. So we are on top of it, and you can agree with me that of recent, it has been a thing of the past in Lagos. So this one has just happened this morning is an isolated case. Before this morning, it has not happened for the past 1 month. I can assure that. I mean, I can tell you that. It has not happened for the past 1 month because we always, mobilize our patrol officers with their motorcycles to patrol the identified areas where we normally have peak, traffic congestion at the peak period. So it has been reduced to the barest minimum. So this one that happened this morning is just an isolated case. And we'll keep on doing our best to make sure that it doesn't happen in Lagos.
So there you go. That is his reaction. What do you lot think about what he said? So there's several items and several matters that popped up there. You know when they always say they are on top of it. I know you heard that. So put that in the kitty. But we also did ask several questions concerning policing. There will always be that question as to the ratio of policing the United Nations standard of policing globally. We fall way short of that recommendation. And now he's just giving that complaint. So how do you stem this in the bud? How do you actually stop this? Because if he says it's isolated, I'm not sure that exactly is the case. But the thing is, there are huge challenges because you will always have traffic congestion. You will always have it. Globally, major cities have it. Not making an excuse that we can do a lot better than we are doing in the country about managing traffic, because don't forget, time is money and time is spent. If you spend all that time in Lagos, we lose money. And so authorities needing to do what they had to do. I mean, some of them suggested collaboration with NURTW, visibility, policing, having street lights along the area. There's just so many things. But if the economy keeps going the way it's going south, you guys can only be as good as mine.
You know, from time to time when we raise these issues, I talk about the shape-shifting nature of insecurity.
Oh.
Yeah.
And this would look like it's just one of it. For a long time, yes, I mean, this commissioner is right. We've had pockets of such, unruly behavior that would, spiral into robberies and all of those things for many years in Lagos. Yes, But then it is not an excuse. Something the Vice President said that, look, we need to employ technology in fighting crime. At least sometimes we should be able to anticipate that some of these things are going to happen. If we know there are certain black spots or red zones in the city that will have traffic, what are we doing to police those routes? You know, I don't think that's something that is out of the ordinary. The Third Mainland Bridge, for instance, we know anytime from between, like, say, 4 p.m. till, like, say, 9 p.m., that's going to happen.
Almost 24 hours.
Exactly. So one is wondering, I mean, I believe we have scooters, or bikes. I mean, what's wrong with us parading those ones? I know when I use the Third Mainland Bridge sometimes and I see, the men of the police command on the highways just parading the media and all of that. So that's, one. But then that is Lagos. And Lagos has as its neighbor Ogun State. And listening to the governor of Lagos in that interview with Sean Kimberley, my colleague, one of the things that he said, look, we are collaborating, that the state government is collaborating with Ogun State to ensure that security is good, and all of that is taken. But when you view that some people who are chased away from Lagos go into neighboring Ogun State, then you begin to ask some questions. It's Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. This morning, for instance, some people said that they experienced that there was a robbery on the Long Bridge. I don't know whether it's going towards Ibadan or coming from Ibadan. There was that I hear it's coming from Ibadan.
Inward Lagos, right?
Inward Lagos. And there was 2 vehicles involved. One vehicle was completely smashed. All of the glass, the windscreens and windshields were completely smashed. There were 2 vehicles involved, one car, one SUV. We don't have visuals for that. Sincere apologies, because we were not there. It was just reports. So this is something for the government of Ogun State and Lagos State to take precaution about and ensure that these things don't just happen. We know that there is a lot of preemptive action being taken. We've heard of trucks being stopped from coming into certain cities, some stopped from coming into Ondo State, from coming into Lagos.
How effective can that manual checking be?
Exactly. So all of those things, just as you said, it's a lot of issues rolled into one. And at the end of the day, if people are insecure, investments cannot be secure. And these are the issues that I think we should give attention to.
And you've just about touched on everything else, in addition to the fact that the response of the police commissioner is insufficient, but we all understand, particularly because after the NSAS protest, the rank and file of the police force has really been decimated, particularly in Lagos. So they have a problem of, inadequate personnel to address all of these issues. And one thing that may have encouraged, the traffic robbery just on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is the setback created by the ongoing rehabilitation work on the expressway. But the police may have a greater problem, the security forces generally may have a greater problem on its hands right now. This is because there's an intelligence report, little wonder, that we have it. There's been some related to it before now, that there are, I don't want to name them now, because of, the limitations on language, herders in the forest, or kidnappers, if you like it, in the forest just behind Kara, the border area between Lagos and Ogun State. And, the intelligence was put forward by some members of a ministry that are holding a program right now, that some members of the ministry were saved from kidnappers. So the security operatives in Lagos may have to do a bit more. There are some security operatives that are seen on the road in the morning patrolling, but they're not quite enough, and they don't look particularly armed, well armed enough if there's an attack that will take place. So how sufficient is their work in terms of checking the influx of non-state actors or criminals with criminal intentions who are coming into the Southwest to cause havoc? How reassuring are the words of the police commissioner in terms of, commuters who have to apply the roads early in the morning? Those words are not quite reassuring enough. The federal government must do something, urgently to shore up manpower within, the force, such that travelers on the highways can be reassured of security. And mark you, Ayo and Chamberlain, that on the highways, there are no traffic lights. There are no traffic lights that would even aid any
street
pursuit.
Lights?
Yeah, any street lights that will aid pursuit of criminals, who have criminal intentions on the highway. Markwe?
Well, first off, I have to say, my sympathies to those who have to, go through that, go to work really early in the morning and have to worry about, being robbed. In addition to every other thing which you worry about, I mean, delivering on your job, getting to work on time, and then coming back home safely, not knowing whether you can go and relax at a spot, with what we're hearing, the influx of people we're hearing coming into Lagos. It's a lot for the average Nigerian to deal with. And I, just as you guys were speaking, I've just, putting myself in the shoes of anyone who has to be on that bridge. I know that a few of our colleagues have been affected by this, and it is, quite a lot to have to deal with it. I mean, the experience itself will be really traumatizing. So first off, sympathies to those who are affected by this and who have to mentally calculate. I think that what you lady and gentlemen have said is really right on the money, that a lot more needs to be done. We need to be innovative. We cannot just give up on the situation, because it does look like when we find a solution to one, another problem is rearing its head. From time to time, we have heard of, robberies in traffic. But the dimension it is taking now, the rapidity, or will I say the increase in the rate of robbery is traffic robbery is beginning to get really mind-boggling. And I think that we need to also see what it is that residents by themselves can also do. Why will rely on the police? I know that some people, when they're in traffic, if they're about to be attacked, they bump into the person right in front of them, and because they think that the person who is in front can come. But I think even people are getting smart now. Nobody wants to, fall in the trap of robbers. But I think that maybe we can find something, an alarm, maybe to alert people around that, you are about to be attacked. Is there any way we can, I don't know if it's allowed in the country, is pepper spray allowed, for instance? What sort of personal protection can you have on you, in the event that you're attacked? Because if this is what we're getting from the police, and we already know the challenges that they themselves face, it's not going to go away overnight. Why will challenge the security agencies to do much more? There needs to be something that the citizens themselves can do. I mean, what creative ideas can we come up with to also ensure some level of personal protection? Because traffic and Lagos are synonymous. If there's, we know that things will get better, and we pray that they do. But in the meantime, people are going to be in traffic. What do they do in the event that they face this sort of situation? These are the kinds of education, that should be going around right now. But in the meantime, really, heartfelt health. That could be any one of us. I hope it doesn't happen to us. I hope it doesn't happen to family members. I mean, but the thought that I have to come to Lagos tomorrow is giving me a headache already. Sympathies to all of us, whether you live in Lagos or not, as long as you have to be there at some point. Yeah. Sympathies to all of us, but I think we need to find creative solutions to our problems.
Well, look, whatever people can, use the pepper spray, pepper them if you can, as much as you can. Look, whatever you can in your own little capacity, you can always do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But we'll focus on that as we progress. Incidentally, we'll talk largely about security as well today. So just stay with us. But in the meantime, let's go over and take a look at some of the dailies here today. Welcome back. Let's start with this Nigeria newspaper here today. And the kicker, Nigeria's unity. We've lost over 1 million citizens since 1966, says Buhari. 1 million citizens since 1966. Okay, you'd have thought that there's a rider here to expatiate a little further on this matters. But I know that, look, people will just zero in to this present Nigeria as a result of this headline on this Nigeria, where, you know, the killings that seem to be going on in the country, in different parts of the country, and in some cases you see them in hundreds.
Absolutely.
And so it raises a lot of questions concerning what is being done. But with this, it just raises more questions as to, okay, so the next natural question is, what are we doing to stop it?
Is it abating? It's a question a number of people may also want to ask, because we've been talking about a series of insecurity issues over the years, in recent years, and especially in the build-up to every election. And our attack is no less such an incident, as well as the front page of the Daily Times gives us something that you might say is some sort of good news.
Yeah,
the
true.
Daily Times newspaper. Yeah. The CDS is giving us an assurance this morning that masterminds of our church attack captured. How far with that, you may want to find out on the front page of the paper this morning. To be paraded before the public in due course. Find the details of that on the inside pages. Governor Akeredolu confirms arrest of culprits, warns Ebira in Ondo against venturing into kidnapping. As a front page of the Daily Times newspaper this morning, and a number of other stories you'll find on the front page. Still talking about insecurity. 2023 elections will hold. CDS assures Nigerians the same event that the CDS said that one as well. So, reassuring, most certainly. But as Marquez said in the opening, you think and calculate about going to work and making sure you do your jobs well. You do not calculate that you're going to be attacked. I just hope, just as she said and prayed, no one ever has to have that kind of experience.
But don't leave anything to chance.
Absolutely.
Do whatever you can in your little capacity
yourself.
within the law to protect yourself.
Well, the reassurance coming there is not so reassuring, you know. When you think about the coming elections, something really has to change in terms of security for Nigerians so that they can be confident about going out to vote in 2023. From Daily Times, let's take a look at leadership newspapers this morning. And he leads with the election, unsurprisingly. INEC exonerates staff over PVCs dumped in streets. This is an interesting one. Political parties, CSOs, ask Commission to unravel mystery. Vow to ensure effective monitoring of 2023 elections. And elections will hold next year, military assures Nigerians. Now, if INEC is exonerating its staff over PVCs dumped in streets, there are more questions to be asked as to who should take responsibility. The voters or those who registered won't take their PVCs and dump them. You know, it's absolutely unlikely. Now, if it's a security breach, are there CCTVs in INEC office to give us leads as to who took those PVCs and dumped them somewhere?
When you say the citizens, come on, so 1 million people, or maybe even, let's even say 500 people will all go into the same place and drop in the same place? Come on.
That's what I'm saying. It's unlikely. So Nigerians need more cogent explanations as to what exactly happened with those PVCs. Now, also, how do those PVCs get to their owners so that if the government can assure Nigerians of security during the elections, they can participate in the election? Well, that's it for the big story. You'll also find on the front page of leadership newspapers this morning, Lawan, that's on the left corner, Lawan Akpabio, not senatorial candidates. That's another explanation that INEC is providing as to what seems to be a brewing controversy over the candidacy of those individuals. And finally, we've given 100 billion naira to indigenous farmer manufacturers. That's Mr. President who spoke yesterday after the Federal Executive Council meeting. And that's it on the leadership newspapers this morning.
Well, let's take a look at Daily Trust for you. And they have this one, presidency, NUPRC fracas puts $1.28 billion Seplat ExxonMobil deal in limbo. How PIA empowers Commission on Business Deals. Why we oppose President's approval. That's according to the regulator. Parties must follow regulations. That's according to experts. So just in case you're wondering what that is about, Seplat has decided to acquire, I think, about 40% of ExxonMobil. But there is a process which they must follow. It looks like the regulator is not happy that the process hasn't been followed. There's been a bypass of sorts because we heard that the president approved the deal, was it on Monday or thereabout, but it looks like the regulator is maintaining its stance that you cannot do this outside of the law. The PIA was signed by the president, and they believe that the president will not operate outside the law. So you have all of the details. I don't want to say all of the juicy, maybe all of the oily details on page 4 of the paper. Let's leave it there. Should we take one more? Should we take one more? Let's see. A few other headlines here. Allow attacks on national assets and be sanctioned. NSCDCG wants commandants. That is also there. Residents camper for safety as bandits strike in Katsina metropolis. So that's also there. Some international news. Republicans react as FBI agents raid Trump's Florida home. So that's also there. All for you on the front page of Daily Trust newspapers.
Well, the Guardian newspaper. So let's take a look at that next. It's political this morning. Wike remains boastful as cracks emerge in his camp. And then you see Maiba, Opara, Omehia fallout with Wike over Atiku. No move to divide Rivers PDP, says Atiku camp. Abe to Wike, don't return Rivers to dark days of toxic politics. Maiba accuses Wike of working against Atiku, PDP. Twists as Delta PDP backs Ayu for supporting Sheriff's candidacy. So you've got quite a number of things, just happening here, thick and fast in terms of politics. And so when you see these kind of headlines, what you should look out for is, what is it that they're not saying? Is there a vacuum in some of these things when you see those headlines? I think not.
I would have wanted you to shed some light on it, but we don't have enough time. Maybe tell us what they're not saying.
Well, I wish I could, but perhaps we should read between the lines, or maybe in the course of the programming, if that happens.
Let's even start with the lines.
Because there's a lot more.
Read the lines first.
Between the lines, right? Okay.
Just read the lines first, then you can have
go.
between the lines. The Daily Independent has this one that you may find interesting. How #EndSARS protest may shape outcome of 2023 polls. That's the lead of the Daily Independent newspaper this morning. Seems that the ghosts of EndSARS that we say now is just not going to go away. Look at what you have right there on the riders. Buhari addressed the issues. No more anger in the land. That's subscribed to Keyamo. See, that's reading the line.
No more what?
No more anger in the land. Ascribe to Keyamo. That's the line.
What context can that be?
You may want to read between the lines later. But
no more anger in the land. Is that a futuristic comment or presently?
Second rider. Outcome of panel reports yet to be implemented at Igborua. Well, if you just those two alone will tell you whether or not there is anger in the land.
In the land.
Wow.
The third one, Nigerians are waiting to pay APC back. Ologbon says that one.
So just there's anger in the land still?
I don't know about that.
Because payback
means anger.
So there you go.
Ubani lauds Nigerian youths for enthusiasm to vote in 2023. That's on page 29 of the Daily Independent newspaper. And right under that one, under the picture, terrorists not laying siege to Abuja can't stop 2023 elections. It's a quote. Find the details on the inside pages.
And from there, let's take a very quick look at the Vanguard newspapers this morning. I don't know whether this has more lines in between the lines, but it also talks about the crisis within the PDP. Party leadership, Wike in standoff. A source, well, we don't know what source that is, unless you read page 5. But let's take a look at these riders. Party hawks want Wike ignored. Rivers governor responds by allowing opposition inroads in Rivers. Party dilly-dallying with governor's conditions. Delta PDP backs IU, demand tough stance on anti-party activities. Politicians twisted. I'm fully in charge of Rivers votes declaration. That's attributed to Governor Wike. And the APC is not without its own crisis. As you would see on the front page of the Vanguard, there's a picture of a protest. Benue APC stakeholders say no to Muslim ticket. Niger APC stakeholders say no to Muslim ticket. That's it. You find that also in, I think, page 5 of the Vanguard. Well, I won't let you go this morning without taking Mr. and Mrs. Somebody's courting trouble this morning, and it's Mr. I'll take it very quickly. And Mr. says, Mrs. says, polygamy breeds nothing but trouble. Even the society condemns it. And Mr. responds by saying, that's society's opinion. Let's carry out our own research. I'll get a beautiful, sexy lady with killer curves as my second wife. Let's see where the trouble will come from. Trouble they sleep, Yanga go wake up.
Okay. Wish him luck with that. So that's a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We're back in a moment. Stay with us.
This is the second time the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabo, will be meeting executives and editors of media organizations in Nigeria. And top on the agenda of the meeting is the need for synergy between the armed forces and the media. The recent security breaches across the country, including the Federal Capital Territory, have increased tension among the citizens. But the military believes some successes have been recorded in the fight against criminality.
It is in recognition of the key role of the media that the leadership of the armed forces of Nigeria will continue to seek you and engage with you.
In June this year, armed men attacked St. Francis Catholic Church in Owo in Ondo State, opening fire on worshippers and killing at least 40 people, with scores of others injured. 2 months after the attack, there appears to be good news, as disclosed by the Chief of Defense Staff.
I'd like to very heartwarmingly present to you that we've done quite a lot, and it's my pleasure to also let you know that starting with the church attack, we have arrested those behind that dastardly act. On the 7th of August, Idris Ojo, who is 32 years old, was apprehended at Ayetoro Street in Ondo State. He is one of the high-profile Islamic State in West African province terrorists that escaped from Kuje prison. Alongside with him is Jimo Ibrahim, who is a 39 years old criminal, who was also arrested.
While fielding questions from the media executives, he gives assurances on the security for a peaceful conduct of the 2023 general elections.
I join, to encourage and, of course, to assure, at least from the military side, that the 2023 general elections certainly not only will he hold, we will do everything to ensure that nothing stops it.
The outcome of this media parley is expected to shape future interaction between the media and the military authority. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
So how do we internalize the comments coming through from the CDS in the context of what's playing out in the country? Wait a minute, what about the president's directives? How are they responding or carrying or executing those directives of the presidents concerning security? Well, let's head to Abuja and get some answers. Marpa?
Retired Major General Augustine Agundu, who is the former commander of Operation Safe Haven. Thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning.
It's my pleasure.
Mr. Wilson Inalego, who is a former AIG of police, we have to thank you also for coming this morning as well.
It's a pleasure for me to be here.
Well, some news there from the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabo. I was just about to say Major, and I remember, no, he's a general, he's a full general, General Lucky Irabo. And you could see that even as he was saying it, what he was hoping to carry across was, from what I could get, was beyond the message. I think what he was also trying to say was that, you know, that we need to have confidence in our security agency and the capacity to be able to deliver. And that's what I was able to glean from the manner in which he delivered the news, that the people who were responsible for the Owo attack had now been apprehended. But for you gentlemen, I know you're men of the, I don't want to say establishment, but you've been in the force, in the different security agencies. Given our current circumstance, given where we currently are at, would you say that that is enough to instill the confidence in the Nigerian populace about the capacity of our security apparatus? Let me start with you, Major General Agundu.
Yes, thank you very much for having me here. Indeed, we will have to be conscious of the effort of every level of leadership of the military to get operational successes as expected. A lot of work is being done behind the scenes, and of course, military operations are not planned on the telly or on the pages of newspapers. Well, the military leaders have that utmost responsibility to carry out their job professionally. It's a career, it's a profession. It's not like any other type of jobs that will be executed somewhere or whatnot. And we want to deliver results, and we're always striving. For each time that there is a setback, it means that a lot of things is also going behind the scenes. The military leaders are there to plan the campaigns, to plan operations, to execute operations from all the levels of operational successes that you have seen. A lot of work is being, a lot of sleepless nights are being put into place to bring out, and do not forget that we do have action after action reviews for each operation, and then where we go back and sit down and see what happened and what is the next step and how we're going to get this. So that is the result of what you have seen by the, of course, if you watch the Chief of Defense Staff, he's trying to be very careful not to divulge a lot, and he was just fighting. But the thing is that a lot of effort is on to make sure that we stabilize the situation in the country today.
I don't know whether you also, do you agree with him, or do you have another perspective?
Yeah, I think from the operational success being recorded by the security forces should instill confidence in the mind of the public. Because when you had that dastardly attack in Owo, I mean, it looked as if those people were like spirits. But now, they've been apprehended. And I think this should encourage the public to support the security forces, that no matter whom you think you are, if you're a criminal and you perpetrate acts, the long arm of the law will catch up with you. Wherever you go, you'll be chased and apprehended. And I think once you begin to build this kind of trust in the mind of the public, you begin to prevent the fear of crime. Talk of Abuja. You think of so many places, oh, you get phone calls, we can't come to Nigeria, we are told this is happening, that is happening. But when you see successes like this, it renews your confidence. And I think the public should have confidence in the security forces to deliver on their mandate to keep our communities safe and secure.
There will always be questions as to how that wasn't detected in the first instance, and how it is, I mean, when you think of the fact, he talked about two of the convicts, of the high-profile convicts, inmates of Kuje prison being apprehended as well. I don't know whether it's as well, or maybe it was as a result of the apprehension that we're able to get, but I don't know. The reason why I'm drawing that link is because when this Owo attack occurred, the federal government, through the Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, came out to say that they saw the imprint of ISWAP over it. And part of the suspects, part of the convicts whom he tells us that they have been able to apprehend are the people, the high-profile ISWAP inmates at Kuje. There will be questions as to how we let Kuje happen, how we didn't act on intelligence. That will be there, and how it will seem that we're getting these convicts back in trickles. We're not getting them back in large numbers when we hear the amount of people who were able to escape. But let me bring you back to the issue of preventing this sort of crime in the very first instance. Do you think that there is enough on the ground? Because right now it looks like we're struggling to catch up with the terrorists. It looks like we're struggling to catch up with the bad people. And after they've committed the act is when we go after them. Do we have enough on ground to be able to say, as we're going after those who have committed these crimes, we also have sufficient intelligence to foil the attacks of those who are planning fresh ones?
Absolutely. You see, for every organization, in the military, for instance, they have more than enough intelligence assets to go after, that supports. They are all force multipliers that support the operations. And but the local support on the ground is very paramount to help us to put flesh to the intelligence that we have. And it should be a collective effort. What we are facing today is more or less information battle, which also we expect the support from also the media to help us not to give oxygen to these terrorists. We know there are setbacks like any other human endeavor, but are we making efforts? Are we putting in enough to ensure that such a thing never repeats itself? The answer is yes. Well, it might not be at the pedestal at which you expect, but you have to be, we have to be very, very, we have to support our military. We have to support the effort of each and every effort that the military is putting in place to make sure that results are good. There are set objectives for all military operations. There is nobody that what is sought, especially in the generalship rank, that you sit back and you see that things are not going in its appropriate direction and now you just say, lay back. No. Every now and again, a lot of effort is being put in. But we cannot, as like I said earlier on, we can't put all those things on the table because military operations are planned, they are followed and properly executed if there are setbacks. Even the successes that we have now, a lot of planning is still going on to sustain the successes that are so far achieved. So there is no time for rest until the total peace that we expect for the entire country is gotten. Now, these terrorists are humans. They live within us. You can see, if you take the instance of the Owo, with all the expose that we have today, we see that they lodged somewhere within the same town. How large is Owo? Somebody supported them. They moved some from a particular point. They had transportation. So it is imperative for each and every of us as a nation to come together to say that we must nip everything in the bud. And then the military will be able to do their own aspect. The synergy that we have today within the security forces, military and security forces, they are all unprecedented.
Do you think that this arrest was something that just happened? Some people would say that perhaps not. The governor has corroborated the statement of the CDS. But before now, the Amotekun had said that, oh, they were hot on the trail. I think they said they had caught a few of the suspects involved in the Owo attacks. And you also noted that it was saying that from the choice of words that the CDS used, he was being careful not to divulge too much. I don't know what your thinking is, but or what it is that you will be allowed to divulge or tell us from what you know. But if I were to join the dots from my own basic analysis, I would be able to say that this seems to be an ongoing investigation. It looks like they're bringing in people bit by bit. Do you think that is the situation?
Absolutely. Before the CDS spoke and then told the nation what has happened, a lot of things had happened. A lot of arrests have been, a lot of leads have taken place, and we don't. Military, by its profession, you don't talk too much. All what we do is carry out a lot of series of actions. There are people who are planning. There are people who are within intelligence unit. There are a lot that is going on at the same time, pari passu, whatnot. So there is no way for us to say that this is. It was at this point that they were gotten. It was at this point that this happened.
But given the level of where we currently are, I mean, he wasn't speaking at a parade. I think when he gave that statement, some people would have loved to say, where are they? We want to see them. And rightfully so, too, even though people are innocent until proven guilty. But in this instance, if the security agencies are cocksure that these are the people, I mean, through months of painstaking investigation, these are the people who are responsible for this crime, do you think that, one, they should have paraded them? And two, do you think that the public should have a little more information beyond we have been able to apprehend these people?
I think, like you read, even in your comment preceding this question, you have talked about perhaps it is an ongoing, the investigation is an ongoing process. And is it possible all of them would have been apprehended? And if they have not, do you begin to parade them prematurely? But I think the public anxiety should be assuaged by the fact that arrests have been made in connection with that heinous crime. So it's difficult, to begin. You must get to a comfort level when you think, if I parade the other guy hanging out there, who could be the main person you're looking for, you will not compromise your investigation and the other processes. And of course, I'm sure it's not going to take so long. They will be handed over to the appropriate agencies for prosecution. And
the appropriate agency in this instance will be?
Well, it could be the MPF, the police, to prosecute. It depends on.
You're a little reluctant to mention that.
Yeah, but once the investigation gets to a certain stage, I think it will be handed over to the relevant agency that will carry out the prosecution. And I think this arrest could have been a product of interagency cooperation and collaboration.
He mentioned that it was as a result of that. I think even my colleague Chamberlain highlighted that.
All right. So,
and we are having some interagency cooperation on this conversation.
Yes.
But I mean, he was also very clear. He said it was military-led interagency cooperation. So the military in this instance was the lead investigator. But would they be the lead prosecutor? That's to either of you.
Well, I'm not.
Does the military prosecute?
No, we don't have prosecution power.
Okay.
But investigative, yes, we have, and at a certain stage in the entire, when it is ripe, they will be handed over to. It's a whole gamut. Everybody is on board on this, and we cannot rush into investigations because these are high. I don't give them what they don't deserve, but they are high-value targets. want to know the extent of their recruitment, from which year have they joined this group, who are their foreign, perhaps, links, who are those that they have been into, and how much indoctrination have they given into this. A lot of things need to come out. So, but what, like he said, what we're trying to do is to assure the public that a lot of work is being done. And the survivability of our country depends on each and every one of us. We have said that over and again, because we all have a role to play. Now and again, even the NSA, you now see most often talking about the whole of society approach in solving a lot of our problems. We cannot just lay back. We cannot stay aloof. The country is at its brink, and the level at which, if we take, for instance, the situation in the Northeast now, and you see the level at which operational successes are being recorded, and even those who are surrendering to this, a lot of information is coming out from there. Those who are, after profiling and vetted, of course, the state government is taking a lot of action on those who are being to be rehabilitated and all those stuff. But the successes in that is not being seen, because most of these terrorists that have surrendered, they have already started making families. They have children. I said now there are more than 35,000 children that came out with them. So if we don't put all these bits and pieces together, those children could be the next generation of terrorists. So a lot of work is being done. It's a whole gamut of efforts. And I believe that if we keep our legs on the pedal, I'm sure that total peace will sooner than later come into the country.
So let's zero in on interagency cooperation.
Yes.
And also throw in something in the mix. I mean, when I think about the statement of the Deputy Speaker of the House, talking about how there were 44 intelligence reports before the Kuje attack happened, and you hear now that it was as a result of interagency cooperation that we were able to secure the arrest of these people, and also bring back convicts from who broke out of Kuje. There will be questions as to why is it that interagency cooperation, good as it is, and results-driven as it is, it gives results when it happens. Why is it that we don't see it as often as we ought to see it?
I think a lot of agencies, especially since the 9/11, across the world, agencies at the core of their policy and practice is to encourage interagency cooperation and especially collaboration. In carrying out this process, of course, it has to be intentional. And if you don't do it intentional, but I think beyond that, beyond talking about synergy, interagency cooperation and collaboration, I think it's got to be internalized. And how do we achieve that? I think in our curriculum, in all our various training institutions, we've got to give specific attention to them, so that when these young officers are coming out of the academy, of the police training schools and the rest of them, they already have it in their minds that this job I'm going to do, I'm not going to do it alone. Because at the core of interagency cooperation and collaboration is the public. How do we keep them safe? Can one agency keep them safe? No. They must.
We know that there are so many things that militate against that.
So we've got to, about in the training, once in a while, joint training. Of course, the MPF has that at Jaji. Once some level of officers in the intermediate on training in just go to Jaji and have. So across various agencies, there must be active interagency cooperation and collaboration internally and externally. And also, just like you try to build the confidence of the public, you also encourage that, either at the mess level,
What
the
I'm
senior
saying
officer,
is, what
yes.
exactly is obstructing it? We know it is desirable. That's basically where
you
we
have
are.
somebody to seek success alone, seeking vainglory, not being respectful, not being humble. You've got to recognize that the other agency has its core responsibility, and that in bringing them on board, once that level of respect is not there, it tends to put people off. Once there is a kind of superior feeling by any agency against the other, you will not have interagency cooperation and collaboration in particular. But once there's mutual respect, it will go a long way. But once you are not seeking to be the only agency that can do it all, forgetting that, you alone cannot do it. So we've got to seek those boundaries, and you've got to respect the responsibility of the other agency. So once you have that, and then nobody, claiming glories, claiming that I did it. No, we did it. Once we have the spirit of we did it, we're going to succeed.
I know you wanted to quickly, you certainly worked with Safe Haven, and
That's
I'm sure
right.
you had many instances where you had to cooperate with other security agencies.
That's right. Interagency cooperation is there in our training manuals, all the level, but perhaps it has never been as it is. Now, I give kudos to the present leadership of the armed forces, the Chief of Defense Staff and Service Chief, and also even the Inspector General of Police. Now, there is greater synergy amongst them. And if you look at their philosophy of command, you see at one tail of it is also rendering necessary assistance as it might be to each other. And since we are faced with lots of this insecurity in the country, there have been a lot. I have seen series of meetings and conversations and plannings between the service chiefs and the Inspector General, and even with the DSS and all of them. So what I'm saying is that the present crop of military leadership, they understand that very, very well. And if you take Imo State for an instance, most of the successes recorded in Imo State is by interagency. DSS leading in some instances, police and the military giving the leader support that is so required. So it is the in thing. We all recognize it today, and nobody is going to stay away from that. Of course, I experienced it in Plateau State, because every agency in Plateau State, more or less, they supported my efforts and everything, and that helped us a lot.
I know that there will be more questions on this one, but let's throw this to Lagos. Ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Makba. Well, Major General Agundu, listening to what Ms. Inalogu was saying, some of those comments as to being humble, respectful, we did it, not one agency doing it. It's about other agencies. It comes across as though there's a lot more that is being said and not being done about interagency cooperation, or more or less rifts between the army and the police, because the public cannot afford to get that kind of impression. But what we see is, in fact, a couple of days ago, the army brutalizing the police officer. So it comes across as though the army doesn't have that relationship with the police, which they could leverage on largely to achieve a lot more success. Is that right?
No, that's not entirely right, Chamberlain. When there are isolated incidents of disciplinary cases, it does not rub off on the entire system. Yes, we will have some times we do have altercations and at low levels and all. It does not say who we are. But let us look at the successes that have been recorded so far within this prism of interagency cooperation. It's working. And I'm sure that a lot of effort, every agency, both the military and other security agencies, they have seen and they do acknowledge that now we have to do it all together. What has been eliminated now is those personal ego, those fiefdom you try to build, that I am the one in charge, it is mine or whatnot. We all recognize today that together we can get this job done. And of course, you have seen how responses are being carried out. In certain instances, you know that it's Perhaps they'll ask, okay, the police officer on the scene should talk to the media what we did, even though the military did it or whatever. So these are things that are going on, and I believe we are going to sustain it, and of course we'll get greater results going forward.
I too, for those who think that there appears to be this institutional divide between the army and the police when it has to do with interagency cooperation, because I mean, look at what's going on with terrorism, internal security and policing. Mr. Nalugu was reluctant to say who really is the lead agency, but that happens to be the police. So in this kind of case, does the police submit themselves to civilian authority, in this particular case, the police, for instance, where they the ones to have taken charge of this internal security, for instance?
Yes, the police has primacy on internal security. But when a situation develops to the extent of terrorism that involves mass casualty and the rest of it, there is a process of military assistance to civil authority.
Yeah.
And so once you have such a situation, though the police has primacy, but you could have the police, I mean the military coming in. But I think the way the situations are evolving so rapidly, it becomes difficult to follow very strictly the MACP or the military assistant to police procedure. So there are times that because the situation develops so quickly and leading to mass casualty and all that, you have the military step in. But there is, a process. And so you don't have, and that is why in most of the cities, you don't have the military conducting patrols. But at the outlying areas, talk of Abuja, you find like Kuje and the other places where you have some of these suspected, where people think some of these people are. Those operations are going. And in most cases, they are joint, operations. So when you have a situation of terrorism, and then people armed with RPGs, GPMG, and the other high-caliber weapons, of course you have the military step in. So there is no very, very strict divide in that case. Sometimes you must have a kind of symbiotic the police must have a kind of symbiotic relationship with the military. Like I earlier said, when the situation is developing so. And that is why I was trying to say that once the initial arrests have been made, you've got either the police, most likely, or the DSS. I think police, the MPF most likely, having, to step in with conducting full investigation and prosecution.
When you say most likely, is it not very clear what it should be?
Yeah, when like the attack on Owo, I believe the police eventually will take over the investigation and the prosecution. I think that's why the Chief of Defense Staff talked about.
Speaking about that,
this achievement.
We even need to listen to again some part of what the Chief of Defense Staff said, but that will be when we return in just a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. Well, we're trying to wrap our heads as to the trajectory in terms of if the CDS was actually saying that those who were arrested from escaping from Kuje actually were the ones responsible for the Owo attack. So that looked a little confusing because, I mean, the attack in Owo happened before that of Kuje. So I guess something is amiss, which we'll sort out. But Mr. Nalugu, are you satisfied with or would you say that there is a policing component in all of this internal fight to rid the country of terrorists and insurgents? Because many who keep asking themselves if they wanted to volunteer information about terrorism, many cases, they don't know where to turn. And even when they get to the police says, well, we don't have this capacity. So something seems amiss here.
All right. Okay. You see, the police has primacy in internal security. But is the police proper? Does the police have the resources to be able to fulfill their mandate? Ordinarily, in a state command, like I said, there is a process of a transfer from the police to the military, or yes, to the military, because I think it's MACA or MACP, Military Assistance of Civil Power. Now, but the situation that we have, luckily the police has the reach. In most communities, you have police presence. The police is the first point of call. If you are in Kajuru, for example, and there is an attack, does the division in Kajuru, for example, have the resources? Do they have the manpower, the personnel, the personnel strength? Do they have the logistic strength to be able to respond? Unless we are able to equip the police to a reasonable level, we are going to have the military coming at the first point of call, which shouldn't be. Not even the NPF, not even the police mobile force. The situation that we had in the past, you had the situation where you had the conventional unit respond. And it is when the conventional unit is unable, that is the blue uniform, they are not able to do it. That's when you have the police mobile force. But now, the lines are so blurred. They are hardly there. Therefore, there should be a conscious realization that the police being the first line of defense, the police having primacy on internal security, should be given some level of logistic support. I am encouraged that the FCT administration has come to that realization. I think last week, the FEC approved about 2.something billion for purchase of about 60 Ranger trucks, light trucks, for the police. If you have the police properly equipped, they are able to deal with some of these situations. So by the time the military is coming in, it's coming to clear and then allow the police to maintain law and order.
Okay.
So long as you don't have proper equipping of the police, you have in the police division, you have perhaps only about 25 or 50. They have one rickety vehicle, communication gadget not proper, not in some cases not available. So it's going to be very difficult.
All right.
So I think what has been giving success to the MPF, they've been leveraging on community support, collaborating and cooperating with the public. So I think to be able to enable the MPF fulfill its mandate, there should be conscious effort to provide the necessary resources. Not giving them an envelope and say you do not exceed. So if you don't do that, you are going to have difficulty.
Okay.
Ordinarily, the arrest in Owo, for example, should have been, the commissioner of police parading the suspects arrested or talking about it. But the situation is such that the MPF is not properly.
Yeah, but Mr. Nalegu, as much as we want to see improved and better communication or rapport with security agencies, the army and the police themselves have done certain things that the public raise questions. For instance, when local security networks in different states, Ondo State, for instance, make some arrests and parade them before the public, the police says we're not aware of those kind of scenarios. And it's not the first time. Why does that always happen?
Well, what the law, I think what I was taught in the college is, a private person, individual, can make an arrest, but hand over to the police. But that law is being violated. But I think I'm not in the mind of the IG, or the management team, and other commissioners of police. But Nigeria, we've got to get it right. We shouldn't walk upside down.
Pardon me, Mr. Lego.
Work in an organized
we're running out of time, so
things Yeah, things get done. Because Amotekun, just a moment, if Amotekun makes arrest or a Bebeagu or whatever, you hand over to the police. That is the process. That is what the law provides.
Is it the same thing for the army?
Can arrest. But
is it the same thing?
You hand over to the police.
So is it the same thing for the army?
No. When you talk of the military, like the military clearly today is involved in internal
Yeah, when
security,
they make arrests, should they hand over to the police?
Of course, like I told, in this case, the chief of defense staff or the process is there. They will hand over eventually to the MPF,
General,
because the police are to prosecute.
Right, General, just a quick one. I mean, it's good to know and hear that arrests have been done, you know, but it's something that the country wants to see sustained. And whatever needs to be done to ensure that that is sustained is what we all want. So we've seen cases where the army moves in, clears the place, secures a particular territory or area, and then when they leave, terrorists come back to those places because it's not being filled. So what do you think is missing there? Is the way, with the way things are at the moment, is this something that the army can sustain? Because if the policing component is missing, you take 10 steps forward and several others backward. Can the army sustain things the way they currently are at the moment?
Yes, certainly the efforts, they are going to be sustained, and incrementally too, we're going to start getting results. Yes, once you take you liberate, for an instance, a particular town, a particular community is liberated from the hands of terrorists, and of course it's expected that you hand over such into law enforcement agencies to maintain the internal security, which is their statutory responsibility. Most often, once we are not committed, if the commitments to hold those grounds and allow the military to forge ahead on other battles. Do not forget, in the midst of war, there are several other battles, several other operations and everything. So there is always that effort that this is phase one has been achieved and we're moving to phase two. Okay, agency A or social security agency or whatnot should take over. These are done. For an instance, if I give an instance while I was Commander Operation Safe Haven, there was a time that I felt that the whole of Metropolis, the city, is safe enough. We had a discussion with the Commissioner of Police. I said, I'm withdrawing all my troops within the city. I need them in the hinterland. So you take care of, and that was done. So most of these things is often on the, let's not, if we are committed to doing what we are supposed to do, I'm sure that we are going to have a lot of positive results going forward. So it is my hope that every level of command, you are actually committed to doing your responsibility, do that which you are called to do. If everybody makes his own, this is functional enough, I'm sure that sooner than later we are going to have a stable polity. Now, and do not forget that there is nothing like eradication of the entire security, or there is no nation that has 100% security sanity, so to say. So,
but General, on that same issue, yes, on that same issue that you raised about everyone doing their bit, I go back to the issue you raised the other time when you talked about the fact that there is interagency collaboration in the training manual of the military, and perhaps all other agencies of government would say the same. However, what you said just now, that, okay, we have to secure this area, let these other folks take over so that the achievement can be sustained. I'd like you to, if you don't mind, tell us how the relay happens within the agencies. So the police invites the military, or the military comes in, military performs a function, and then this agency takes over, and then that agency takes over. How does it work, really? Because there are those who will be wondering, what's the role of the NCDC, the DSS, the police themselves, and other agencies, security agencies in the whole spectrum? How exactly does it work, or should it work? Because with the number of soldiers that we have, I'm not sure we can cover 2 soldiers or even 10 soldiers for every state in the country and still maintain territorial integrity. So if you can take us through, how does the relay work? Who hands over the baton to who at what points in securing the country, if you don't mind?
Yes, the protection of the territorial integrity of the nation is that of the military, the Army, Navy, and the Air Force, according to their own terrain and their own land forces, maritime and air forces. So once we come together in a joint effort, and of course, everybody, even there are certain operations that at the planning stage, everybody is on board. And while we're doing the planning of those operations, like what we have, okay, we are going to do this. The Army, the Armed Forces say they're going to do this. The Navy, at this point, DSS will require you here. NSC will require you at this point. So everybody knows his own beat. But unfortunately, the myriad of troubles that we have, they are quite overwhelming. It is not that we don't have enough. Of course, there is no armed force. No nation has enough armed forces to cover its country, which even take the best of Western nations. You see all the trouble that they are going through within their own sphere. But let's not fret. We are working very assiduously, very, very hard, and putting effort that is even greater, in a greater pedestal than we have done even in the past, to ensure that the entire nation is covered, the entire nation is appropriately policed, the territorial integrity is not violated.
Major Agundu, just a very brief follow-up to that. A very brief follow-up to that question. Who takes responsibility for that chain of command?
Say again, please.
Which agency takes responsibility for that chain of command?
Now, once there is first of all, we discover what the operation is going to be. Is it going to be an army-led or military-led operation? Or is it going to be a police-led operation? Is it going to be DSS or whatever? Or collaborative? In the course of plan, when we plan operations, we don't come to the television to say how it's being done. Yes, even if there are some setbacks or there are some negatives or whatnot, it does not design with the effort that is being put in place. We have to reassure everybody and the entire nation that the armed forces and the present crop of leadership of the armed forces, and indeed the Inspector General of Police and the DSA, they are working in tandem with each other. And of course, from the military strategic level, once they pass down the information, the authorities down to the operators, to the taxi level, everybody knows what he's going to do. If there are individuals who do not function according to as expected, it does not determine that the chain of command is not being respected, or the handover process is arbitrarily being done, and all whatnot.
I wish you could be clearer. Yes. Because in this case, and in many cases, what we have is internal security that has to be taken care of. And the police says, look, it's the police that is in charge of internal security. But I'd like to come to Mr. Nalegu very quickly now. In terms of the arrest of the Owo Church attackers, it's significant that Amotekun had announced, as my colleague said earlier, that they had made some arrests. But the armed forces didn't acknowledge that at all. There was no statement from the armed forces. And in fact, the police said they're not aware. So is this a case of higher, so to speak, forces taking credit for what little-known Amotekun was able to do? Is that what is playing out here now?
I don't agree with you, because even Amotekun came out to say they made arrests, and they were not clear on it. But let me take you through this process. What is going on is totally arbitrary and wrong. The process of arrest by a private individual is you arrest, you hand over to the MPF. Amotekun, Ebubagu, or what other groups they are called, I don't think they have business going to conduct parade suspects. I think it's even a violation, because they don't have that mandate as far as I know. Two, If Amotekun had made that arrest, the proper place to hand over would have been the MPF. So I believe the military must have made this arrest unrelated to the one made by Amotekun. Because Amotekun, whoever is leading Amotekun knows that if you make arrest, you hand over to the police. Why? Because the law, I think, Section 26 Criminal Procedure Code, Section 10 Criminal Procedure Act, the power of arrest. And then it goes down to say that a private individual can arrest, but immediately hand over to the police. So if that is not done, I think there is a violation. So and then you've taken us back to the fault lines of people claiming credit. I think we must put the interest of the public on top of all this. And
in fairness to Amotekun, just to give a little more clarity to that question, if I remember that story correctly, the Amotekun commander did not parade those that they had arrested. They only mentioned that they had arrested those people.
No, that's what I said. I said they only said they have made arrests.
Yes.
But if you watch television these days, you find different groups.
Oh yes, Amotekun, shows people that they have also maybe trying to invade the state,
what I was taught in police college is that the private person can arrest, but after arrest, you hand over to the police.
Yeah.
So when I find Amotekun,
have you heard that they haven't handed over to the police?
No. Well, I'm no longer in service, so I wouldn't know that.
You seem to be assuming that they don't hand over to the police after the parade.
I'm not assuming because
after showing.
No, after showing. I think if I am commissioner of police, in Ondo or whatever, I'll work with Amotekun to the extent information gathering, they can arrest, hand over. But I think there shouldn't be this arbitrariness and everybody arrests. You are parading. I even parading.
It points fundamentally. I mean, whilst there'll be questions as to whether Amotekun should parade or shouldn't parade, I had to speak on that particular issue because I remember that when our own correspondent reported on the matter, we asked him for visual evidence. He said, the Amotekun commander just said it. So we didn't even have the visuals of those who were allegedly arrested by Amotekun. So we have that, in clarity. But, I mean, we've since seen other pictures of those who were arrested and paraded by Amotekun. But you also know that these people, questions will be asked of them. This particular agency that has been set up in the Southwest. Because when people continue to see criminal tendencies in many parts, or, people are scared, or people are wondering, this agency that has been set up, is it really working? Maybe they too are under some pressure to show evidence of their working. That could be a reason. There could also be, we are doing something with the police. This is our own part. If we hand it over to the police and things go wrong, as we have seen in the past, this is not without precedence. Even you were reluctant to, mention that the police should be the one to do this prosecution, if I noticed that.
You see,
it's a yes or no. Were you not reluctant?
No, you see, let me say something.
Yes.
As far as criminal activities are concerned, those are within the mandate of the NPF. But state security and all that, we can give that, to the DSS. But this is pure criminality. But I have my reservations about the operation of some of these parallel non-state actor agencies. And I say that there is a provision.
Is Amotekun still a non-state actor?
I'm coming.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, I will answer it. Let me say something. The president in 2020, April or so, approved for special, what we call supernumerary police, the Friday police, if I may call them, and specific numbers for states. These guys will be given police uniform, though the color slightly ordered, darker than the very bright blue that the MPF wears. I would have been comfortable like Amotekun, are operating in that way. In that way, there is that synergy. Because, and then you in various communities, what does that say? If, for example, you can say in Nyanya, you nominate about 50 guys or 100, and then they are trained by the MPF. When they are trained, they are given uniform. Only their numerals will be 3, not 6, like the regular police will wear. But they will be under command. And in that case, they act as force multiplier to the MPF. And in that way, you have it organized. And then you can, when you are talking of your state police, you begin to see, has this process been very successful? Because the training, synchronizing that training, matters. So, and then you will not have everybody doing.
Well, the judgment is certainly will be left to the people, and I think that it will be in the results that are achieved by the multiplicity of the various agencies that we have. Gentlemen, we have to thank you both for coming on Sunrise Elite this morning and sharing your thoughts. I mean, there's so many questions twirling, and I'm sure that we could continue to have a lovely conversation, but we have to go out of time. Thank you so much. We've been speaking with retired Major General Augustine Agundu, who is a former commander of Operation Safe Haven. And we also had with us Mr. Wilson Inaligu, who is a former Assistant Inspector General of Police. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Let's take a break at this point. When we come back, we'll be talking electoral matters. In just a moment, please stay with us. Well, I did say we're talking about electoral matters, and how can we speak about electoral matters without bringing in legal practitioners? Big question. This morning we have with us Mazi Afam Osigwe, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria, and we're talking about this letter, or will I say this press statement, which INEC has released, titled Spurious Allegations in Respect of Nomination of Candidates in Some Senatorial Districts. Well, it turns out that, there has been controversy over at least 2 different positions, one in Akwa Ibom, the other in, I think, as Yobe State, as to the acceptability of certain candidates who did not participate in the initial primaries as stated by their political parties and also monitored by INEC. In this case, INEC had already said that they were not accepting these names, but it turned out later on that, information went rife that INEC indeed had accepted the names. But INEC says it stands by, and I'm going to read parts of that statement now. It says, as part of the ongoing case in court, a law firm requested the commission for a certified true copy of the Form EC9 submitted by the All Progressives Congress as his candidate for Akwa Ibom Northwest Senatorial District, which we are duty-bound to oblige them under the law. The form was certified on 15th July 2022. If minimum care has been exercised by the promoters of the story, they would have seen the 2 stamps of the commission bearing different dates on the form. It is this form that is now misconstrued as INEC's endorsement. So it looks like there's been some misinterpretation, even as these matters remain in court. But Section 115 of the Electoral Act continues to remain controversial. Mazi, shall I first of all say welcome to Sunrise Elite this morning?
Thank you so very much.
We can continue with this conversation and assume that you had already been welcomed, but hey, this is a formal welcome. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I do not know. I'm sure you must have been following with interest this controversy which had come up. You've seen INEC's defense of this issue, and I'm sure you're also following the matters in court. From what you can see, does it look like there is any, tinge of a chance that these cases could be resolved in favor of the political parties, even as they're agitating that the names of the candidates which they want to present should be allowed into the portal of INEC?
Thank you, Maokwe. Now, because these matters are in court, I will not make any specific reference to them, but I will speak generally. Now, Section 84(1) of the Electoral Act 2022 stipulates that any political party that intends to nominate candidates for any of the elective offices provided for under the Act and indeed the Constitution shall hold primaries. It's mandatory. And then Section 84(5), 84 subsection 4 and subsection 5 stipulates that the candidates who emerge winners in the direct, where the party chooses direct or indirect primaries is whoever emerges the winner in these primaries, that the political party shall submit their names to INEC. Then Section 84(11) provides that where a political party violates the provisions of this Constitution in the conduct of primaries, INEC shall reject names submitted by such a party. And in that 84(1), it said that the primaries to be conducted by the party shall be monitored by INEC. So in other words, if INEC has monitored the primaries of a political party where Mr. A has emerged winner, and that political party submits the name of Mr. Z, and the submission of the nomination made by the political party pursuant to Section 29, Section 30, and I think 31 of the Electoral Act is not in line with Section 84 as to the actual winner of the election and as confirmed by the INEC monitoring of the election, INEC will be right to exercise the right under Section 84(11) to reject such a nomination. And people keep talking about Section 115, and I think it is one of the most misunderstood sections. Section 115 criminalizes a situation where a candidate, not the word, a candidate. Now, when you're going for primaries, you are an aspirant. When you have won the election, won at the primaries, and the party puts you forward, you're the candidate. Now, Section 115 says any candidate who signs more than one nomination form or result sheets in more than one constituency commits an offense. That is a penal section, and that has to be determined by the court. Now, Section 153 defines a candidate as a person who a political party has nominated to stand for election. So at the point you are an aspirant, you're not a candidate, and Section 115 will not apply to you. But where you hold yourself out as a candidate, and political party A gives you nomination party in the prescribed nomination paper in the prescribed form pursuant to Section 29 and 30, and you fill it in and sign it and verify it by an affidavit, and political party D gives you, you also sign. That is the kind of situation Section 115 is talking about. It's not talking about a situation where a candidate has picked nomination form to contest for presidency and also picks for Senate or House of Reps. That is not what that's said. So it is one of the most misconstrued sections. But the point is, what is playing out in some places is a test of our willingness to keep faith with the laws validly made by the legislature. The Electoral Act tries to enthrone democracy, building on the gains of the 2010 Electoral Act. So if you are not the person who has won the primaries in your political party, no matter how big or small you are in the society, your political party cannot willy-nilly, because they want to pay you back a favor, deprive the winner of the primaries and submit another person's name. So where the party does that, INEC will be fully justified in saying, we do not recognize this individual, he or she never stood for election, the nomination is not in line with the outcome of the primaries we monitored. We reject it. Like I said, Section 84(11) of the Electoral Act gives INEC this power. And the power to monitor is mandatory under Section 84(1). So this is a test of what is playing out. And it is incidentally some of the persons who may be involved in some of these issues were part of those who passed this law. So we need to also test whether people pass laws and turn around to subvert those laws. Wow. So like I said, I'm not going to comment on issues in court, but I'll try to do a general discourse of the provisions of the Electoral Act in this regard.
It's a very interesting perspective you provided on 115 and the fact that it talks about a candidate,
yes,
not an aspirant.
No, not an aspirant.
Okay. Let me quickly send this to Lagos. I'm sure that they have.
Yeah, so, Mr. Osigwe, your interpretation of Section 115, I mean, suggests to some that, wait a minute, does it mean that an aspirant can pick up 2 separate forms or more than 1 form at least for 2 different constituencies or positions, say, for instance, House of Reps or Senate or House of Reps or Senate or presidency, for instance? Wouldn't that defeat the intent of the law?
Chamberlain, what I set out to do is to give my understanding of Section 115 and not to suggest what may happen in some other scenarios. Just to say that the scenario as contained in your question is not envisaged by Section 115 and is not criminalized by the same. The legislation never set out to criminalize that. And to that extent, I stand by my position. Because Section 153, if you have the Electoral Act there, you may look at it, has defined a candidate. And if you look at Section 84(1), it says a political party that intends to field candidates, I'm paraphrasing, shall conduct primaries for its aspirants. Section 84(1) uses the word aspirants. And you see the Electoral Act distinguished between aspirant and candidates. When you become a candidate, you'll be given a nomination form, which you fill pursuant to Section 30 of the Act and verified by an affidavit. It is only candidates that fill form. Aspirants do not fill form. Aspirants fill form at the level of their political party, where they pick nomination, where they pick expression of interest at the party level. It's when you have emerged the candidate at the primaries that you're giving, what do you call it, a nomination form, and then to be nominated by the number of persons prescribed by INEC, and then you verify it by an affidavit, and you submit it to INEC.
Okay, so the expression of interest form which they pay cannot qualify as what for candidates, for aspirants?
It's not a nomination paper.
It's not a nomination paper.
Look at Section 153, the definition section.
Yeah.
What it says, a candidate, and I repeat again, is a person who has been nominated by a political party. It did not include an aspirant.
Yeah, I see here, I mean, an aspirant, Section 152, aspirant means a person who aspires or seeks. Well, in this act, 152 is what talks about, this is where, that's where this definition is. It says aspirant means a person who aspires or seeks or strives to contest an election to a political office. And so that is when it has to do. Then a candidate means a person who has secured the nomination of a political party to contest an election for any elective office. So if that were the case, what do you think the intendment of the drafters were for that particular Section 115 then?
The law is an interpretation of statutes is very simple. If the provision of the statute is very clear, you give it its literal interpretation. So the interpretation of that section is that it is only a candidate, a person who has won nomination, that can be caught by that section, not an aspirant, not a person who is still aspiring to be a candidate.
So, Mazi, the question then is, how does Section 115 play out? Because from what you're saying, it is not possible for one individual to pick the nomination forms and become a candidate of 2 different political parties. And it is not also possible for one person to become a candidate in 2 constituencies at the same time. So the question Chamberlain is asking is what I'm now trying to look perhaps from another angle. How does Section 115 play out when it is impossible for one person to be a candidate in 2 positions in the same political party or in different political parties. What's the intendment of that law?
Well, let me say this. If you're asking me about possibility, then we are going into the realm of conjecture. And if we are going into the realm of conjecture, then I'll tell you it is possible, because in Nigeria, most politicians are no better than gamblers. They can gamble for Senate and gamble for House of Reps, or even for governor and gamble for Senate. So if this doesn't work out, this may work out. So I say,
would he become a candidate at that point?
Ask me again,
just a second, sir. Would he become a candidate? Because you emphasized repeatedly the word candidate, not aspirant.
You confuse me, but if I understand you, and I insist that my interpretation of the law is correct. Now, why your questions may actually be looking at scenarios that the law may not have covered, which in your opinion, I guess, you think the law should have also taken care of, is that can a person pick nomination forms in primaries to run for two different offices? And I say it is possible. If it were not possible, Section 115 would not have envisaged it and tried to criminalize it. Because I can pick for House of Reps and pick for Senate.
All right, let's read it, Mr. Osigwe. 115 D and K, but D first says a person who signs a nomination paper or resolve form as a candidate in more than one constituency at the same election. Then K says signs a nomination paper consenting to be a candidate at an election, knowing that he or she is ineligible to be a candidate at that election, commits an offense, and is liable on conviction to a maximum term of imprisonment for 2 years. So does a candidate fill nomination form after being a candidate?
No. Chamberlain, I take you again to Section 30. It is when you have won primaries that the nomination form is given to you. And the Section 29 says that nomination form will be in a prescribed form by INEC. It is that nomination form that is being referred to. A scenario covered under K, which I have referred to, could mean if the minimum age to run for presidency is 35 years and you're 20 years and you're filling nomination form to run for president of Nigeria, knowing that you're not constitutionally qualified. That is the kind of situation envisaged by the K subsection you've talked about. Or it can also include a situation where you knew that you neither picked nomination form, you neither contested in primaries, you are not the person who came first at the primaries, you ought not to present, your name ought not to be forwarded to INEC, and this form is given to you, and you fill it. An offense would appear to have been committed under Section 115K, because in the first place, you never went for primaries, neither did you come first. Or in the other scenario I created, you are not of the constitution, you didn't meet the constitutionally stipulated minimum age to run for that particular office.
Mr. Osigwe, in responding to the poser raised by Ayo that what would be the intendment of the law, even you acknowledge that politicians are gamblers and they may want to secure, a position in another office. So if Section 115 now criminalizes nothing with your explanation, do you think it should be amended to read aspirant?
It would not be right to say that Section 115 criminalizes nothing. It criminalizes something, but the interpretation we are giving it with respect to aspirant is wrong. That is my position. My position is that at the state of primaries, Section 115 is inapplicable. It does not criminalize an aspirant who stands for primaries in two different constituencies for different offices. It doesn't. It only criminalizes a candidate when you have emerged the winner in the primaries.
But it's impossible to emerge a candidate.
INEC. That is at the point that offense would appear to be committed.
Senior advocate, but it's impossible to be a candidate in two offices, in two political parties at the same time, or in one political party at the same time. The priority of Nigerian politicians is to secure a ticket for an office.
I came to the studio to discuss the law, not to conjecture as to what is possible or not possible. We're interpreting the law. And when it comes into the realm of what is impossible, Nigeria sometimes can give you absurd situation. So I won't be surprised if a person is being maybe put forward as a senator here, senatorial candidate as a gubernatorial candidate here. If we push that, if we go through some books, we may even see situations where this has happened in Nigeria. So I do not even if I'm to conjecture with you, it is not impossible.
You know, but at the same time, too, I mean, we thought that it's agents that sign result sheets, not even the candidates.
Well, I didn't draft that law, and I didn't know why they said a candidate who signs result sheets. So the drafters must have had an idea why they thought in some cases a candidate may have to sign result sheets. The agents signed them. So, but for whatever reason, they thought it was important to provide for it.
Yeah, so,
and
do you think it's loosely drafted?
Such a candidate signs it, then an offense will be committed.
Would it be fair to say that this might have been, it's loosely drafted?
I have that same impression about certain provisions of this Electoral Act. If, for example, you look at the place that talks about disqualification and aspirant can sue, they said, there's a place that the provision where they said the Electoral Act stipulates that if a person who has presented some information that an aspirant in that election can go to court and the court can disqualify him as a candidate in that election and declare the person that won the second highest number of votes winner. It's a bit ambiguous as to, is it to declare, to void his candidacy before the election takes place? Or the person to be declared winner, the person that came second in the primaries in his own political party? So there are some bit of, there are a few examples of inelegant drafting in that act. And I'm not here to discuss the draftmanship of that law, but some sections, some subsections could have been better drafted for clarity.
Well, we understand that the National Assembly, some members have saying that, you know, it looks like there could be danger ahead if it is interpreted in a certain manner, especially the section 115, especially those who lost out in maybe the original political party and defected to another one to quickly buy the form there and to see if they could get a position. So maybe your interpretation will work for them. If it doesn't work, I mean, assuming that is not the side taken by the law, and it doesn't work in their favor, they're already seeking how they can amend it. Is it too early days yet to be looking at amending the law?
It's not about my interpretation. It is what the law provided.
Well, we know that. I mean,
and this law did not set out to say that if you lost in Party A,
yes,
you can't move over to Party B to emerge a candidate. If, for example, I lost in Party A, or for some reason after losing in Party A, circumstances arise that make me decide to defect.
Yes.
And the candidate who has been nominated in Party C meets the condition, dies, or voluntarily withdraws, such that that party is mandated to hold a fresh primaries within 14 days. And maybe he was the only person that stood for primaries in that party. And I quickly pick up expression of interest and present myself. It is not affected by section 115.
Well, they want to be sure. I think that's why.
If they want, I give them a legal opinion and they pay for it.
Okay.
But speaking on a public space, they are not affected. That is not the intent of section 115. They are not candidates.
We'll see how matters eventually pan out in court.
I'll be shocked if it turns out otherwise.
Okay, we'll see how eventually it goes. But we have to thank you for sharing your opinion with us on Sunrise Elite this morning. Mazi Afam Osigwe is the senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you once again.
Thank you so very much, Markwe. Thank you.
Well, let's take a look at some of the feedback that you have now. We're starting with this tweet from Bodrick Olabode, who says, kudos to the Nigerian military intelligence for apprehending the terrorists, and this is an indication that our military are still very much alive. However, my only advice is that we shouldn't give pardon to any terrorists.
Well, this one is from Henry Okeke. On fixing Nigeria's security challenges, the emphasis should be on the welfare measures that can motivate our security personnel to perform maximally. The general public must show love and solidarity to the security forces as a way of motivating more operational milestones.
I couldn't agree more. And Kenneth is also talking about national security, and he says there is a need to modernize security agencies through adequate training advanced technology, motivation, and change of direction in order to succeed in fixing national security challenges.
Well, this one is from Peter Idialu, who says traffic robbery, like any other crime, can be controlled. There are flashpoints where this is a common occurrence in Lagos. With all sense of sincerity and adequate funding, a dedicated police helicopter can be used for surveillance, especially during peak periods at notable traffic robbery spots. Strategic ground positioning of members of the police force around the flashpoints can also deter the criminals.
Well, that's citizens not giving up, coming up with solutions. So I'm sure that if we dig deep, we'll certainly be able to find solutions to this robbery in traffic, not just in Lagos, wherever it is that it might rear its head. But Lagos has the responsibility right now to show the way that it can handle this sort of situation, this new problem that has sprung up on its hands. Thank you so much for your contributions this morning and for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Indeed, I can't forget Malquest Council on pepper spray. You might want to consider some form of self-defense. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
Please stay safe whatever you do. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
I am Chamberlain, so goodbye.